Project Hondarod. We're doing a little fun arts and crafts project today. If you guys don't know, I make 164 Hondarod resin casts. These are basically Hot Wheels size, and I'm going to do a demolding and also do a live resin layup of the next one in the batch. So, what I've got are two silicone molds. One is for the body, and one is for the interior. That's actually the body. That's actually the interior and chassis. So these are just silicone bricks. I made these using some patterns when I first carved the Hondarod body. And to demold them, we are just going to give them a little wiggle, pry the silicone apart. So the very cool thing about these is now you can see the inside of the silicone mold cavity. I've got a lot of alignment marks just so they'll have index every single time. And then I've also got a pore channel and a couple air vent channels right there and there. So the resin goes in here, fills up the cavity, and then anything that's left over will fill up to the top of our vent channels. So that is pretty standard when it comes to a silicone mold. It's very, very, very critical that you plan on your air release, because if you don't have enough venting for the air release, it will not fill up. Pro tip, I have learned the hard way on that one. Just going to give this a little bit more of a wiggle, try to get the body out here. Sometimes it hangs up on the brackets just a little bit, not a big deal. There we go. And there is a Hondarod body, just like downtown. The silicone picks up a lot of detail, so you can see that there's some door openings, a hood line. So it's got the rear trunk vent. Pretty darn cool. So that one's set to rock and roll. Next up is our chassis slash interior panel. Again, we're just going to start by prying the silicone apart. There we go. And this one has a steering wheel, very, very small steering wheel. So we got to be a little careful taking that out because it is fragile. We don't want to break it if we don't have to. It's definitely one of the smaller objects that a guy can resin cast, a guy or gal. Come on. There we go. Just like that. And it's got just a tiny little mount on there as well. Pretty fancy, huh? And then I got a couple little dots. Those are the headlights for the Hondarod. Those are a second piece that we add on after paint and bodywork. Do a little bit of trimming on that afterwards. There we go. That goes in the box, and we are set to take out the chassis now. The chassis is by far the most difficult thing to pop out because it's got seats on the bottom side of it, so it gets a little tricky. But I did something kind of fancy. Oh, I just lost a headlight. Oh well, we'll find it. I've got extras. I did something kind of fancy with the seats on this one. This ends up being a two-part pour, and I will show you guys that in just a few minutes when we pour the next one. But this ends up being a two-part pour because of the shape of the mold. Sorry, I'm going to throw some wedges down here and try to get a little bit of pry action going on here. Sometimes this one is a little stubborn. Sometimes it's a lot stubborn. That's okay. Just got to be patient. And it will pop out. Nothing sticks to silicone, so just a matter of wiggling it free enough. This is a silicone mold, and this is a chassis for a Hot Wheels size Project Hondarod. These are resin cast. Got some fancy seats, a dashboard, a shifter in there. So these use standard Hot Wheels axles and wheels and tires. And that way we can make custom Honda rods. And the reason I'm doing these is because A, they're fun. They're fun to make. But B, Hondarod is turning 6 years old next month. And so I'm going to do a custom run of miniatures for anybody who is interested. So I've got a couple fans that have been asking for these over and over and over again, and I have some time, so I figured let's do some Hondarods. Oh, I am struggling on this one. Sorry, guys. Normally this pops out a little easier. There we go. We did that one with the blue interior seat package again. Pretty cool, huh? That silicone picks up all the detail. Beautiful. That is exactly what we're after when we're doing resin casting. Cut the flash off real quick with a pair of scissors, and that one is gonna go into the box of parts, just like so. So there's a little bit of flashing, a little bit of cleanup that a guy has to do before we're gonna be ready for our next pour. What I'm gonna be using here is a 2-part casting urethane. Just like so. And there's kind of a trick of the trade that I do with silicone cast. I'll show you here just in a second. That is our trick of the trade. Pressure pots are extremely, extremely important for doing resin casting. What happens is once you pour your resin in your mold, you throw it in the pressure pot, give it about, 40 psi, 40 psi. And what's going to happen is all the little micro bubbles are going to collapse down, and they're basically going to disappear once they're under pressure. So that is a little something that I use a lot for all my resin castings. I also pressure cast my silicone as well. So if you're going to be getting into the silicone resin cast game, I highly, highly, highly recommend investing in a pressure pot, because it is going to make your parts way, way, way nicer than just doing it by air. I did a live one of these yesterday on my other channel, Grey Duck Customs. That's Grey. And so what I've got here is, like I said, a 2-part casting resin, part A, part B, mix it together 50-50. And this is from a supplier called Sterling Supply. It's got about a 2 to 3 minute open life before it starts going off. So it's not open for very long before it starts to gel up. So you have to kind of go a little quick. Like I said, this one's going to be a little bit fancy, because what happens in here, when I pour my resin down the channel here, right, the resin's going to fill up this mold. And what happens is these real deep seat cavities don't quite fill up all the way when it's standing vertical. So what I do is I pre-pour the seat areas, and once that starts to cure out just a little bit, then I put the mold together, and then I pour the rest of it. That's totally, totally acceptable. The resin will bond to itself as long as it's not cured. So you can kind of use that as a little fabrication trick there. And I'm going to add just a touch of red pigment on this one. Doesn't need to be a lot, just a drip. And that gets mixed in on the A side. We swirl it together really, really nice. We pour our B side, mix it together. Like I said, this stuff has about a 2 to 3 minute open window. So in such a small batch, you can actually kind of get away with mixing it for, half a minute or whatnot before you actually need to do the pour. Once I actually do the body of it, I mix it for no longer than about 10 seconds. It goes really, really, really quick, especially trying to get it into the pressure chamber. So I'm just using a mixed stick here to kind of drip this in the seat area, make sure it's really, really well filled up. Let me pour the rest of that in a cup. And we're going to be able to watch this actually go off here in just a couple minutes. So typically what I will do is I'll kind of run around and just kind of give this a couple taps. So if there are any air bubbles, they can come out and pop up to the surface. Try to catch that shifter detail. So yeah, adding the pigment to any resin casting is fairly simple. Here's one of the red ones I did a couple days ago. Got the red seat package. And that one we just popped out has the blue seat package. And that's just a little bit of resin tint in there. Like I said, it doesn't take a whole lot. It goes pretty darn quick. So what ends up happening with these is once they get all trimmed up, there's a mount screw on the bottom in the front, and then a mount screw on the bottom in the rear. So once the axles and tires get all fit in there and everything gets all painted and detailed and clear coated, they go together just like a Hot Wheels. So pretty cool. Pretty cool. Cut off a little bit of flashing real quick here. There we go. So I got a bunch of these going on right now. Over here I only have a few of them, but I've got a number of them at the house getting ready for primer and paint and all that kind of fun jazz. So it's only been a few minutes and you can already see that that is gelled up. The color will start to change just a little bit too. But yeah, doesn't take a whole lot. So another thing that I do when I prep these silicone resin cast molds is I'll get some packing tape. And the packing tape is going to be used to clamp the molds together. Some people like to use rubber binders. I prefer to use packing tape. Just in case there's a little bit of a leak in the mold, the packing tape seems to kind of hold it together a little bit better than rubber binders do. So because it is silicone, you have to remember that the packing tape isn't going to stick very well to it. You got to kind of have to wrap it around. Keep the tension on the tape as you're doing so. I also run a strip just on the bottom of it, just in case the resin comes out. It usually doesn't, but on the off chance that it does, it's nice to be set to rock and roll. So you can see that on this one, I marked my fill channel. That is the larger of the venting holes there, so that's going to be used to fill the mold. And you can see that this one's just starting to change color, so this is almost ready to get glued together. That color change there means the resin's going off, so it's got just a couple more minutes to go. And we can tape this together, do a resin cast, and jam it in the pressure pot. It's kind of a exciting little project I got going on here, huh? We're getting there. We are getting there. I did kind of mess up just a little bit on this. Normally, I don't mix my A side in the same cup I'm going to be measuring out with. Normally, I'll do that after the fact. So this one might be a little bit tinted compared to some of the other ones. It's going to come out just slightly pink, which not the end of the world, right? It's going to get a coat of primer anyway, so this one can just be a custom version. Part A and part B measured out. Okay, this is going off pretty nice so far, so I'm going to take our top half of the mold, set that down there, get our packing tape. I can find the start stop point here. There we go. And same thing, we're just going to wrap the packing tape around like so. There we go. All right, I've got 2 mold cavities ready to rock and roll. So what I do from here is I take our mixing cup, and I do want to make sure that's going off pretty far. So we mix our part A, we mix our part B, and this is the one where we go really fast. So you only really need to mix it for about 5 or 10 seconds. Like I said, we're kind of under the deadline on this, or kind of under the time crunch, because I only have about 3 minutes total to get these poured and get them into the pressure chamber before it starts to go off. So I typically start on the more difficult pour. Give that a little squeeze, make sure the resin goes all the way down to the bottom. Make sure there's no trapped air bubbles in there. That looks pretty good. Gonna do the same thing with this one. In theory, what's gonna happen here is you're gonna actually see the resin come out of the vent holes. Yep, just like so. Give that a little squeeze, make sure everything's looking good. This one I'm gonna squeeze a little bit more. There we go. Now we are off to the races. We take our two molds, we put them into the pressure chamber, like so. We put our pressure chamber lid on. Clamp it down, and keep in mind this is a pressure chamber, so you want to make sure that the lid is very, very, very tight. You do not want this to accidentally have a leak and blow off. That would make for a bad day in the shop. There we go. And then we hit it with air. Just like that. And we are set to rock and roll. So I typically stop at about 50 psi. That typically does the job really, really well. And this is going to take about 30 minutes, 45 minutes before it is good enough to take out of the pressure chamber and demold. So that is our fun for the day. Yeah. Miniature 1/64 scale Hondarods. And stay tuned. There will be more action from Project Hondarod very, very shortly. Here in Minnesota, we are just getting over winter time, so the car has been in cold storage, and trust me, it's going to be a fun summer. A lot of changes, a lot of upgrades. We are ready to have a lot of fun this year. So a lot of cruises, a lot of adventures. And so, yeah, we're just kind of doing some hobby stuff, killing some time, having some fun. And that's it for today. Thank you guys for stopping by. I will catch you guys all on the next trip. Have a good one.